Alright, this clip is going to be about the new marijuana laws in Michigan that are coming down the pipeline. And you might as well learn more about them because they're not up for debate. They didn't get any debate. They were written, then they were floated around in the Senate where they made some changes over a period of 11 months or so, maybe even longer depending on which one you're looking at and how long there's been attempts to try to bring some clarity to some of these issues. Like it or not, there's a new, that's what's going to be happening. Might as well figure out what it is and where you fit in. And if you're just a caregiver doing the regular old caregiver-patient model, and you're doing pretty good doing that, I don't think a whole lot of changes are on the horizon for you. One of my major concerns, though, and if you follow my channel and if you've watched all my videos, God forbid, there's a lot of them, but if you have watched a lot of my videos, you'll notice there's kind of a reoccurring theme going on with these state rollouts, is that they're really slow. And it's just a testament of how corrupt the government is and how long it takes for them to set up a new regulatory body or even a regulatory framework that they have to have existing bodies ramp up their operations to accommodate for it and all this other stuff. We're seeing time and time again where these regulatory situations aren't meeting deadlines, the regulatory bodies themselves aren't formed, or the framework is faulty, and in the end, the people that end up suffering are the patients. So let's hope Michigan can be the first in a long line of failures at this daunting task of the state writing laws and regulations all at once saying, hey, marijuana is legal now for some reason or another. In this case, it's medical marijuana. But for the purposes of the state legalizing them, we have to regulate them the way we regulate them. And some of these regulations aren't always like necessary, in my opinion, or maybe they might be necessary, but they're a little far overreaching. All right, so I got an article here from Metro Times Detroit. In the culture section, Higher Ground is the guy that writes this. His name is Larry Gabriel, and his article is called "Like Them or Not, New Laws Provide Framework for Dispensaries Extracts." So he says, we know where marijuana law and access in Michigan is going in the short term. Two recent developments have laid it out. First development is that there will be no vote on legalizing recreational use of marijuana on this year's ballot. I've been covering this extensively about my legalize and the battle that they went through, blah, 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 blah. It died when the state Supreme Court refused the case, basically, and there is still the federal challenge to the state decision, but even if something good happens there, it's going to be further down the line. And besides that fight, they are also already petitioning for 2018 and so on and so forth. That petition drive is organizing as we speak, so we'll see what happens there. Presidential elections usually have more voters. 2018 is just a gubernatorial election. It's where they re-elect the governor. It's where a lot of Senate positions are re-elected, a lot of other positions that are in the off year, and I think it's by design and by strategy that they have these off year elections. It's to give the underdogs more power or something, I'm not really sure, but anyway. So if public opinion trends keep moving in the directions they have been, it's not a question of when, but when marijuana will be legalized, the actual, recreational, I guess you'd call it. But as he said, it's not something we're going to be able to vote for in November. Boo. I fought hard for that. But anyway, the second development has more immediate impact for the 212,928 medical marijuana patients registered in the state. Governor Snyder signed Public Acts 281 through 283 last year into law, setting up a system for medical marijuana sales in the state and possibly giving us a preview of what a recreational sales system will look like down the line. The people that are the Republicans that are sponsored these bills before they became law will tell you otherwise, but really it is true. This is just quiet as it's kept. If we can get away with regulating something and appease the masters, then maybe we can do recreational too. Michigan sure could use the revenues, I know that. Anyway, the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, the MMMA, did not specifically account for marijuana dispensaries for distribution, and some counties enforced catch-22 of patients may have marijuana, but there's no place to buy it. And now that there can be dispensaries, and it's up to local municipalities whether they want to allow them or not. So we always like to go a little farther than the author on some of these things, and in this case, we would have to say that technically right now, the more I'm thinking about this, the more I realize that dispensaries are not only operating in a gray area right now, we already know that, but in 90 days, when it's less than 90 days now, when these laws go into effect, then they're really going to be in a no gray, red. They're going to be in a red area because the laws will be in effect that will affect them. Now, I don't know if the dispensary law, if they're really stringent about that, but as soon as it goes into effect that you have to have a license, and the license has to be in a place that has an ordinance for it. These ordinances have to be in place before you can apply for a license for that, and that's 360 days down the line after the 90 days has passed. It's confusing sounding, I know, but let's just say 450 days from when Snyder signed it is when you can actually put in for a dispensary license if your local ordinance has been in place. If not, you can always set up somewhere where there is ordinances in place, because this is not residential facilities we're talking about. These are all commercial facilities, grows, testing facilities, dispensaries, the whole nine. Back to the article. So Public Act 281, the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, regulates growth, processing, transport, sales, and taxation of medical marijuana. The law creates 3 levels for growing licenses, up to 500 plants, up to 1,000 plants, and up to 1,500 plants. PA 282 changes the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act to allow for extracts, oils, and infused products. That was another testy point because the MMMA specifically referred to the dried leaves and flowers of the marijuana plant as being medical marijuana, but not extracts made from them. State law enforcement was never comfortable with high-potency substances made from marijuana extracts. Ask them if they ever caught up with anybody that got hurt from any of them, or died, or had a psychotic episode and killed a bunch of people randomly and chewed people's faces off. No, because none of that stuff happens because it's safe. Doesn't matter how concentrated it is. If the only danger is that you might go to sleep and get a good night's sleep. That's it. It's proven time and time again. Kids that they say overdosed on marijuana edibles in Colorado. There might be a dozen of them. I don't know. But one thing I know for sure is that they woke up the next day and they were fine, because marijuana is not dangerous. All right, then there's also the seed to sale tracking system known as Marijuana Tracking Act, or Public Act 283, which was tacked on later in a process with backing from business interests and law enforcement, who probably, obviously they're heavily invested in this tracking system, and they're going to be the ones that benefit the most from it, obviously. Because everybody's going to obviously follow the rules, but if they feel like picking on someone, they'll be able to catch them up on some little minor detail, like the old law was really famous for. Anyway, I'm not totally against these laws, and I'm not totally for them. I wish the people might have had more of a say in them, but they did have enough say to where, so far, it don't look like a giant corporate giveaway. It don't look like a complete shutdown of the old model, like everybody, like there was fears out there talking about that, unless they decided to put a seed to sale tracking system in my house, which I don't think that's allowed, because when you sign up for one of these facilities, you sign away your Fourth Amendment right on the application. It says so right in the law. They can come and search you anytime they want without a warrant. They can do whatever they want. They can monitor whatever they wanted to monitor. So if you're getting one of those facilities, you're in for that. But if you're just me, and I'm a medical marijuana caregiver that grows marijuana for patients at my house, because that's what the law says, it's a residential law, I don't see how they can start intruding with cameras on that. But anyway, we'll get back to it. These laws take effect immediately. That's not correct. It's actually 90 days after he signs them, they take effect. And in practical terms, the only one that matters is 282 for patients who need oils and extracts. That's the one, essentially, it does take effect immediately. You can't put a deadline or when it goes into effect. If the state is all of a sudden saying that these things exist and that they're medicine and they're all allowed by law, then they are. As soon as Snyder signed that, it's like, okay, I can sell these again, or I can have these again, or whatever. And I mean, later on, you're going to have in 90 days, then they're going to maybe come back with, hey, now that the law is actually enacted, you have to actually have proper labeling and put them in child-proof containers and whatever they want to say. And I don't argue with that. I don't have a problem with that. But currently, everybody that has medibles can use that new Public Act in their favor, to say the least. But it could also be another thing where don't think that you can get away with anything, because there they are using that same law against you. And it just becomes a matter of who can fight better in court. We know what that means. The practicalities of how the licensing is administered will be up to a new state-appointed board. Getting the laws in place and an important point in a long ongoing process. Whether they are good or not depends on who you talk to. And I've seen message boards where you see both sides talking about it, people that are for it, people that are against it. But for the most part, I think there's a level of comfort with it. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think everybody's comfortable with the wording. They don't feel like this is going to be something that's out of reach for the average entrepreneur that might want to get one of these facilities. We haven't seen actual numbers on application fees and stuff like that, but we've seen a few numbers and they don't look that scary. We'll see as it goes along, though. I'm not all in and I'm not all out, like I've said. So when you first start approaching public officials and legislators, most of them didn't even want to talk to us about medical marijuana, says Robin Snyder of the National Patients' Rights Association. Many don't believe that there was medical benefits at all. We spent years debating with law enforcement about regulations, the need for transporting security, and seed-to-sale tracking. The two opposite sides had to meet in the middle. Now, it's weird that the patients' rights people are so concerned about those other corporate and law enforcement, interests, but apparently that's how they know how to compromise and how to get things done, I guess. Give before you even have to take. That was spoken like a veteran of political negotiating, is what the author of the article said. Exactly. Okay, Schneider has spent 6 years working in Lansing trying to get something like these laws passed and sees them as a good thing. She's seen the opposition up close and personal and believes this is a major victory, particularly for the patients who need extraction oils. Now, the point he made there is that she's been doing this so long, fighting for patients' rights, for marijuana access, that she knows who she's fighting against, and they would rather have marijuana back to not legal at all for medical purposes, and people going and getting locked up on a daily. That's how it is in Michigan. There's a lot of prohibitionists in Lansing and all over the state. In the Republican Party, there's a lot of Tea Party. There's not a lot of libertarians. There's a lot of people that say they're libertarians that vote, but they're not voting for Gary Johnson. That's a little hint. The regulations do reflect something of a... Oh, wait. Let's rewind. Never mind. Okay, that's where we were. The regulations do reflect something of law enforcement approach when you look at the seed-to-sale tracking and secure transport provisions. This generates questions as to how governor-appointed marijuana advisory council will approach its duties. Will it take the oppositional or nurturing attitude toward the new industry in the state? And that's what I mean by they can set up the rules and make them look like they're, oh, look, we're doing this because we want to help patients and make everything good and better and easier for everybody, when really they just want to set it up so that if you're doing something a little bit out of step, you can get busted. Or if someone is trying to get in the game and they don't have everything, if you get in the game, you have to get a lawyer and figure out how to set your business plan up, because from the get-go, like, there's no two ways around it. All right, that's the tricky trick of these Republicans in Lansing. You can't just assume that you can operate the way you assume that it's written on paper. These bills were driven, written, and approved by law enforcement community, which will not have the same interest in the success of the program as the dispensary people, says attorney Michael Corum, president of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association. This is police oversight program that has nothing to do with the Medical Marijuana Act. It's a license that is supervised by law enforcement team akin to a liquor control system. Now, I agree with them and I disagree with them. The thing I disagree with is the fact that there's the seed to sale thing and the transporting thing. This is all, it's definitely written to sound like law enforcement is heavily involved in that aspect. They're really not. I think just about anybody could get one of these transporter license. Now the tracking stuff I think is done by a Canadian company that, this is speculation, but I'm guessing some major corporation that has experience with doing this other places is coming in and just setting up from the ground up stuff and already has it figured out how they're going to do it. So I don't know exactly what he's talking about. My thing there is that if you look at where the money goes on the taxes, a lot of it goes to the police, a lot of it goes to the state police, a lot of it goes to local police, a lot of it goes to this and then that, and it's all relates to law enforcement. There's even some stuff that goes into some just in case firefighter gets cancer fund. And now I like the sound of the fund. I'm not against that. I just don't like the idea that the only people pitching in on it is the marijuana people. If that's what the case is, if nothing else, we're pitching in a lot, for no reason. And this is medical marijuana. Medical marijuana shouldn't even be taxed. If you want to do these kind of regulations and strict oversight and tax, hey Republicans, I thought you were the not regulation part. I thought you were the people that didn't like regulations and didn't like taxes. Well, here you are crippling small businesses with taxes and regulations directly right in your face. What the fuck? I mean, you're telling me that you're against big government? This is big government. Like I said, if you have one of these facilities, they can have a camera right over your shoulder and flip it on and watch what you're doing right on the spot. They don't, you got to make seriously, you have to make all kinds of reports about every little thing that goes on. I mean, it's such overkill that I can't even explain it. You wouldn't understand what I was saying, or you'd get sick of hearing it after about 1 minute. So anyway, bad regulations all around, just overkill, and yeah, it's a giveaway to the cops for no reason. I mean, I know they're losing business by not being able to arrest people, but what does that really do anyway? Do you really get paid because you arrest people for marijuana? Does that even make sense? Now you got to tie up the legal system with people on these nonviolent drug cases, and then they're going to eventually tie up the jail system where someone else that could be a violent offender could spend in jail, but nope, there's so many marijuana offenders in there, we don't have room for them. All right, at the very least, the new laws add layers of bureaucracy to the distribution of medical marijuana, which was expected. It also regulates where some of the money in the lucrative new industry will go. Dr. Gary Wolfram, a Hillside College economist, has given a conservative estimate that the state will collect $63 million annually in fees and taxes while generating about 10,000 jobs. I don't know where they're getting that 63 million number from, but if you're taxing medical marijuana and the fees are pretty exorbitant too, probably. I mean, they're in the thousands for a license, and then you got assessment fees after that, which can max out at 10,000. So I don't know. It's a lot of fees. All right, the money involved helps draw in those reluctant to engage in the marijuana, or to engage with marijuana. With tight budgets and reluctant to raise taxes, this is an opportunity for state resources. And I don't know about that. I don't think that 63 million number is an accurate number. And a lot of those assessment fees and application fees don't go to the state. I think they go to the local municipalities. I'm not sure. Whatever. It's a lot of money, though. I know if this thing goes off without a hitch and all the money gets changed hands the way that they want it to and say it's gonna, there's gonna be a pile of money everywhere you look. Will it be a level playing field for anyone that wants to join in or get one of these facilities? Or will it be stacked towards those who are, for lack of better reference, friends of the governor? Now, I don't know about friends of the governor. Now, the 5-panel advisory board that the governor sets up, Now, they might have some way to slice and dice the something somewhere where people that are friends of the governor, quote unquote, actually have insider knowledge on how to better get approval, or I don't know. I never heard of any limits. It's just like if your ordinance is set up in your area, then you can apply. You know, I don't know about limits. I know the local area is supposed to say you can only have this many over here, dispensaries, this many processing things over there. Do they know anything about this industry, and do they care? Do the local people, are they really going to get involved? I know my local people said that they were waiting for the state until now, and now they heard that, and I don't know what they're going to do. I'm going to have to go interview them. I'm still skeptical of the legislator and their plans, says Jamie Lowell of Third Coast Compassion Club in Ypsilanti, the first licensed dispensary in Michigan. How will the state actually treat this process? I'm a little paranoid. I've seen enough shenanigans and tomfoolery to have legitimate questions. And like I said, maybe they're just, oh, look at all this good stuff down the line at the light at the end of the tunnel, and then before you even get there, they bust all the people that's in the current game, dispensaries and maybe even growers, who knows, people, you know. And then when by the time all the regulations are ready and they have all their people in place, they just take over, you know, while we're all in jail. That sounds like the worst case scenario right there. That wasn't her, that was me saying that. That was the worst case scenario there. Anyway, Lowell is active with My Legalized group, the ones that we tried to legalize marijuana on the ballot, and is feeling the sting of state legislators' action to block the legislation or legalization petitions, such as a law passed last spring that kept all the signatures collected from being counted, the so-called stale signatures law, or the 180-day rule. Not everybody was holding hands and singing Kumbaya when these laws hit the floor, but they're adding some of the definition to contested provisions of the MMMA that have led to legal problems and even imprisonment for some, no doubt. At least the question of whether dispensaries are legal in Michigan is settled. They are. They are, but they're not yet. So I don't know where this author, he didn't really understand that the 360 days before you can even apply for one, I'm sure. But anyway, he knows that they're legal now, just when, you know. Some of these states say, oh yeah, we're legal now, and they still, you know, 2-3 years down the line don't have legal sales set up. And, you know, that could very well be the situation that happens in Michigan. And, you know, would that surprise anybody if the Republicans was dragging their feet on this shit? I highly doubt it. So anyway, as we finish out here, he says, I think it's a good thing anytime you get a little more regulation and a little more transparency, says Julius DeBow, founder of Dub's Apothecary, a self-described mobile facility that has its wares and medical marijuana events in Detroit. DeBow wants to open a storefront facility soon. The new laws make that possibility much more clear. I open to any municipality that will allow it, he says. Michigan's new medical marijuana laws may not be the most enlightened, but they do provide more clarity for those who want to operate dispensaries and produce extracts, and for the most, just knowing what the rules are will make a difference. Well, I'm glad that he wrote that. A lot of people probably read that in Detroit or whatever, and wherever. But what I didn't like about it is that he kept saying that, hey, this is now, this is right now. Just keep in mind that you have that 450 days from the time Snyder signed it before anybody can even apply for one of these coveted facilities. Other than that, the medibles and all that, yeah. If you got a medible in your possession, you have a med card, you should be all right. Beyond that, I can't guarantee that if you're selling them and you get caught, that anything good will come of that. This new laws and rules still forbids patient-to-patient transfers, caregiver to patient that's not their patient transfers, caregiver to caregiver transfers. If you read the law, there is none of that going on. So any kind of idea that you could actually sell something before you have a dispensary is also false. A dispensary is a public business where you are allowed to dispense medical marijuana currently. There are places all over the state that are doing it. There's places right around the corner from my house that are doing it. Will this continue over in this 450-day purgatory before the new laws are fully in effect and regulations are in place and everybody's ready to start taking applications for these marijuana facilities. I don't know. But thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next time.